so excited to welcome you. Um, Ron Pringle has served in so many diverse roles in food banks across the Southeast, and he's put a lot of hard work and has extensive experience in making sure that children and families have warm, nutritious meals, and he's done a lot for disaster relief as well. So I'm so excited that we all get to hear from him this morning. You can take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for inviting me and having me be a part of a wonderful event. I had a chance to kind of go through some of the speakers and the topics, and it seemed like this is an exciting week with all of the speakers and their topics and the work that they're doing. It's good to know that we're not the only one at times that are in this fight. There are a lot of people who have chosen this space for whatever reason or another to ensure none of our neighbors have to go without. And kind of thinking about how I would, present this to you guys this morning, I thought I would start in reverse. Normally, when I do presentations or I talk to different people, I give the presentation and tell them what I do and what's going on. Then I often get the question afterwards, well, how did you get involved in this? What's driving you? And so I think I'll start there first and answer that question. And that way, when we get into it, you'll know where the passion for this work comes from. So growing up, has always been my dream to join the United States Air Force. Ever since I was 7 years old, I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. No one was ever going to tell me different. I don't know if it was this jacket my dad got with this airplane on the back or whatever it was, but it sparked my mind that I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. And growing up as a kid, having that always as my dream, things kind of shift, life shifts. And at 12, my mother passed away. She was 36 years old, and my father was left with 4 kids. I have 3 sisters. I'm the only boy, and he never remarried, and until we were all grown. And his thing was, he had to provide now. He had to step in and play the role of both parents. And it was a very, very challenging time because, as I mentioned, both of them, my parents were very young. And so my father found himself in and out of work, not able to focus and be maintained and on a job. And so it was very him financially to take care of 4 kids. I grew up in the country, lived next door to my grandparents, and my grandparents were farmers. And so I had an opportunity to work with my grandfather on the farm and learn the ins and outs about food and growing your own and taking care of your own. But in addition to that, my grandmother knew of a place called the Food Trust. And would often go down to the Food Trust, and I would go with her, and we would pick up food for so many other families, and including my family, in the neighborhood. And back, we'll load up the pickup truck and come back with a load of food, and we'll go around the different families and we'll pass that food out. So food was always there. I didn't think about it at the time where it came from, but food was there. It wasn't an issue. I did not have a day whereas I had to be concerned about where my next meal was coming from, because food was always present. And it was because my grandmother knew of this place called the Food Trust. And fast forwarding, years later, I graduated from high school. I left home at 17 years old to follow my dream to become an Air Force pilot. And so I joined the United States Air Force, and going through my testing and all this kind of good stuff, I found out I was colorblind, and they told me I would never fly in the United States Air Force. So all of my dreams were shattered once again, However, I still found my niche of service and work competency there, serving other soldiers, helping them through crises and tough times that they were dealing with. And so that level of service, to others kind of got instilled. And so fast forwarding, coming home, I was talking to a buddy of mine who was working at the food bank at the time, and he was like, you know, we have an opportunity, we need some help, and we have a warehouse position if you're interested. And so I went and I sat and I talked to the executive director at the time and told him, hey, I would, want to help and want to be a part. And he offered me an opportunity to get into this world of food banking. And so as I got in and one day I had a chance to go with our executive director on a presentation. And I got to see him present to a group of people about the work that we were doing at the food bank and story. And in most cases, that's how we often present our work, is we tell a story about a family or situation. And so he began to tell us. And he told that story, that how important it was for when that parent come to the food bank for there to be food on the shelf. And that was a wake up moment for me, that I realized, wow, that was my situation. Whenever my grandmother went to the food bank, there was always food there. Lo and behold, it comes to find out the same director that my first opportunity was the same director that was running the food bank 13 years earlier, when I was there as a client picking up food with my grandmother, and he gave me my first opportunity. And so after that, 20 plus years later, I am still working, trying to pay him that he gave me. And thinking about that opportunity, I was able to think, act, and play as a child. Like a child, all of the things children should be doing and should be. I was able to do that simply because food was not an issue. I did not have to worry about where my next meal was coming from. I didn't have to worry about not eating over the weekend. Food was always there. And so that simple, because he was standing in that space, I was able to have a childhood. I was able to go off in a wonderful career. And I am still working to pay him back, and so to say thank you. And 20 years, it has been quite the experience, in thousands of families and their children, and heard their stories. And the more stories I hear, the more children I meet, the more important I know that this work is. And having dealt with this and meeting these individuals, I understand that food was never the problem, but it was the result of a problem. And that's when this work took on a whole new meaning for me, and a whole new direction, because I realized that I can always hand somebody a bag of food and feel good about it. Thank you. I did my job today. I fed someone. But did I really move them out of their situation? Did I really impact and change their lives? So food is not the problem. It's the result of a problem. And that's why I admire Interfaith so, so much. I started out at the food bank in Charleston, South Carolina. And years ago, I knew and heard of Interfaith and have worked closely with Jill, who was the director at the time here. And she had always been innovative in addressing what we call the root causes of hunger, and teaching people how to cook, teaching people how to grow their own food, empowering people to themselves. And I've always admired that, and sparked in my mind that my self purpose and mission changed. And I wanted to ensure that not only am I helping individuals, but I'm helping them to be on a pathway to self-sufficiency. And so I've met some tough crises. I with the food bank there. The same year I came back and joined in with the food bank there was the same year that Hurricane Matthew hit. We were all expecting it. We knew it was coming and knew it wasn't going to be as much wind and devastation this way, but we never anticipated the amount of rainfall that we had. And it was something, to just sit and be in a space for, 24, 36 hours with consistent rain, and knowing that there are people who are underwater at this moment, and so we had to immediately go into action after that, because there were so many people without power, who were they were in food was needed. And so we had to respond, and being able to respond to that taught us a lot. And helping those individuals, we understood that, this is not a one-time fix. I can provide you meals while you're in this hotel, but life isn't perfect whenever you get back home. There's a recovery process, and there's a part that we have to do to help sustain this individual while they are working their way back to self-sufficiency. And so I met so many families during that time who were in tough situations, people who lost jobs simply because the county and the place that they live was flooded and underwater, but where they worked was in a different county. And so their employers were, they would go to work and be like, look, my family's in a shelter. I can't leave my family there. And they were terminated because they chose to stay with their families versus come to work. And so I met a young man standing in line. We were in Lumberton and we were doing food distribution, and he was standing there and he had a nice suit. I thought it was a really nice suit. And so as I do, I try to make conversation and meet some people that are there and hear their story. And I was talking to this young man, and he told me about his situation. And that was the only bit of clothing that he had that was remaining. His family was in a shelter. He lost his job simply because he chose not to leave his family. And I had a tie on. So in talking to him, I took my tie off, I put it on him and fixed up his collar and put it up. And I told him, I'm like, if you feel like you're at rock bottom, it's the perfect place to rebuild. Engineers dig down until they hit rock bottom. And once they hit rock bottom, that's where they start. And the biggest skyscrapers are built from that bedrock. So where you are now is a new foundation for you to build on. And it all starts today. Fast forward 2 years later, we're now faced with Hurricane Florence. And shortly following, Michael came through. And I never knew how to separate personal life from work. So I guess I'm never off. So I've always handed out my number. Here's my number. Call me if you need me. Call me if you need me. And after Florence passed through, I didn't realize how many people I gave my number out to, because I heard from hundreds of families after Hurricane Florence that we worked with and that we helped, that were displaced during Matthew, that found themselves in that exact same situation again. Many of those families were a few months earlier, I went to their housewarming because they had just gotten back into their home 18 months later, and now that home is underwater again. And so it was tough. It was a different experience and a different need after Florence. It was more of a mental need and space that we had to fill. It's a mental brokenness, an exhaustion of so many people who were in the exact same situation they worked so hard to climb out of. And that was a time where, it was sunny outside, the rain was gone, the days were beautiful, and there were people sitting outside their homes, river, and their homes were still being flooded. North was making its way down and overflowing the riverbanks. We've worked with Indian populations that lived out in rural communities that we weren't able to access, and so we had to take our truck, pull it up, road was washed out, and we form a chain, crossing a ditch, standing in water, passing bottles of water over to kind of get it into a community where they put it on a horse and carriage, a horse and buggy, to take it back to their neighbors. So it was a very emotional, tough time doing that. But we learned a lot about the process. We learned a lot about the type of services and programs and resources that people would need. And it was easy because we were able to see the devastation. You were able to see when people recover and they get back on their feet. COVID had a different response. COVID hit us in a way that we never expected. Uh, it was a quiet disaster that affected millions. During the hurricanes, it was food banks. We have about 200 food that assist with every Virginia. We can call our neighbors in Tennessee and say, hey, we need assistance and food, and they were able to share. However, during COVID, the entire country was impacted. So all of our food banks found ourselves in a unique position where we had to be creative. We had to be flexible in how we distribute food. Need for our services increased greatly, 500% in some cases. However, we found ourselves competing in the same food supply chain as the Walmarts, the Krogers, the Food Lions, because we had to purchase food. Food drives were not going on, so we weren't bringing in food locally. Local retail partners where we were rescuing food every day throughout the year, we were seeing a decrease in food supply there because the rest of the grocery stores had challenges getting food in themselves. And so food now are finding themselves in a unique situation where they have to purchase more food. And so our budgets, my food cost budget went up more than 1,000% over this time last year, simply because we were purchasing more food to keep up with the demand, to keep up with the need that was there. North Carolina alone had over 1 million people unemployed by June of last year. And so individuals that were coming to us for assistance were people that were coming for the very first time. So not only did we have that immediate need to meet, there was also an emotional need to meet, because these individuals used to donate to the food shuttle. They used to volunteer at the food shuttle, and now they're coming asking how can they benefit from our services. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here and we're in this space. And 2020 has really taught us a lot, and we've grown so much better for it. We were able to develop new methods and operations of distributions with hands-free, touch-free mobile markets, where we're able to still get clients their choice of product just by doing distributions. We've been working with Wade County and their school systems to ensure that even though children were out of school, we were providing hot, nutritious meals to those kids while they were at home. And so these were nuances about our programs that developed over time. And the good thing about it is when you get in that kind of situation, you realize even the more that this is something you can't do by yourself. The food shuttle doesn't have everything that client needs in order to be on that pathway to self-sufficiency. So we had to expand our collaborative network. We had to expand the organizations that we work with, because we were on site, we were there, and we saw the need, and we knew where the resources were. And so those collaborations began to happen, and the partnerships began to happen. And wherever we could see that we could invest here locally is where we took advantage and made sure that we were doing that to take care of our community. One thing that I believe is that communities take care of communities. It's not about big government, state, federal. I appreciate everything that they do. However, communities take care of communities. And we established a great partnership with many local restaurants because we knew that there were families that needed hot meals. We had reached our capacity with our on-site production kitchen and what we could produce. So we partnered with local restaurants and we were purchasing meals from local restaurants. And that gave local restaurants an opportunity to put some of their employees back to work. And not only you're putting them back to work and you can afford to keep your restaurant a little longer, you were also supporting and giving back to your community. So it meant so much more. And that's what I call North Carolina Strong, is seeing these organizations and these collaborations coming together in this way. With our farm, we have a 14-acre farm. And one of the things as a veteran, I know and I appreciate is being able to get outside and put your hands in some dirt and cultivate some soil and relax your mind. And during that time, as I mentioned, we had so many individuals, veterans as well, that found themselves in challenging positions because service programs that were helping them through their crisis were closed. They weren't meeting in person. And veterans did not have that outlet. But we were able to open up our farm where they could come out, be outdoors, be around other veterans, help and give back, and social distance, be safe in an environment at our farm. So the farm became something different. It became a place of serenity. It became a place that assisted with mental health, and so we were evolving as an organization throughout this pandemic. And I think the biggest part of our evolution was the conversation surrounding food justice, racial justice. And coming on board at Interfaith was during the time of what was going on up north with the death of Floyd. So many companies, so many corporations were taking a stand. So many individuals and community leaders were taking a position on that situation. And I found myself in my circle with other community leaders. Where do you stand? What's your position? This was right or this was wrong. And it was a very challenging time for me, especially as an African American, where it would seem it would be easy for me to say, here's where I stand and here's my position on that. However, in kind of processing that and thinking about the responsibility that I had to understand and be clear on where my position actually was and where I actually stood. And my response to that was, I stand in the space of hunger. One of the things that situation, this pandemic, has revealed to us is the inequality of the food system, the systemic systems and barriers that are in place. And if I am going to be a leader at the Inter-faith Shuttle who ensures that we are trying to address the root causes of hunger, then it's my responsibility to address and remove those barriers that stand in the way of individuals becoming self-sufficient. And that's our position, is we stand in the space of hunger. So regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your race, color, your gender, however you self-identify, hunger is an issue that affects us all. Hunger is an issue that if it's affecting my neighbor, it's affecting me. Because my neighbor is in this community. My neighbor works in this community. My neighbor gives to this community. My neighbor depends on this community. And it's my responsibility to ensure that I am doing my very best for my community. And the one space that we can all stand is in that space of hunger. I saw all the speakers that you had lined up, and I was going through their bios and looking at the work that they do, and it's so diverse. But the one thing that's constant: hunger, serving, ensuring that none of our neighbors go without. That's the one thing that we all can agree on. That's the one space that I choose to stand in. That's the battle I choose to fight. So whenever the difficult conversations end, whenever the tough conversations about who won this game and who lost this game, what team you're for, and and who won the Super Bowl, when you're ready to serve, here's where you'll find me, is in that space. Standing and serving for hunger. That's why I love this symposium. This is food justice. We are standing up for hunger. We know the solution. We're taking this Band-Aid of food and applying it to those that need it, and at the same time empowering them to learn how to grow food on their own, to learn how to take the food that they love best and make it in a healthier way. That's empowering people. That is changing lives. Introducing children to our backpacks. We're committed to providing healthy, nutritious snacks in our backpacks. Now, there's some programs that say, hey, give them a pack of nabs and some ramen noodles. It's cheap and we can give out a lot. That's great. We appreciate that. We choose to stand in healthy and nutrition because I want to change that child's life. I want to introduce them to a healthier way of living. So when they become adults, they're eating more responsibly. When they become seniors, they have less medical expense because they're living healthier lives. So as a nonprofit leader, you have to have the ability to look a long way down the road and see the results of your work that you're putting in today. There are thousands of children I would never, ever meet. Many of them I know have stories like mine. I was fortunate enough to say thank you to the man that gave me an opportunity. There are thousands of kids who will never know my name, but they get to be a kid today because of the work that we collectively are doing for them. Because you are standing in the space of hunger, you're empowering another generation. You're educating another generation to take care of themselves. You're strengthening and empowering those who will be in position one day when we're all seniors to debate about our health care. We're giving them that opportunity. And that's what food justice is ensuring that everybody have an opportunity. Food should not be an issue for no one. So I thank you all for your time and your attention and greatly appreciate this opportunity to share with you. And I will take any questions that you guys have.
That was so lovely. So thank you for sharing. I'm going to ask this question because I've heard you talk about it before, and I think everyone else would enjoy to hear. But did you ever meet the man with the tie again?
I did. I actually ran into him in Lumberton. Once again, it was Florence 2 years later. And we were at a distribution in Lumberton. And once again, I'm doing what I do and meeting and chatting and talking with people. And some of the volunteers that were there, one of the guys was like, hey, Mr. Pringle, I want to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, I'll get over to you. And he ran back to his car and grabbed some. Came back, and I'm sitting. I know I knew this guy, and looking at and talking to him, and he was like, "Hey, I just wanted to give you this and say thank you." He said, "I have a new job now, and what was going on here?" And he gave me the week that I met 2 years earlier that I gave the tie to, and the gift that he gave me was a new tie, to say thank you for the one that I gave him. And so it was a moment of it was a wild moment for me. That one still kind of gets to me a little bit, because we don't get those a lot, and so I'm one that every donation that we get, whether it's $1 or it's $10,000, I sign every single thank you letter that goes out, and I read every note that comes in, because that's where the encouragement is. That's where I find that yes, what we're doing is working. And that was a moment that carried me, that stirs me and encourages me, knowing that we did our part. That individual is on a pathway to self-sufficiency and is giving back and taking care of his community.
I think there's a few questions in the chat. I'm going to give the people that asked them the opportunity to go off, like turn on their audio and ask them themselves, or I can read them if you prefer.
Yeah, I'm looking at them right now, and I think the question there is our service area and the size of the community and the restaurants that we've worked with. And I'm new to the area, so the restaurants are scattered here with me. And so I don't quite remember the name of the restaurants, to be honest with you. But I know that we have more than 10 that we've partnered with and are still partnering with through June of this year to take care of our school meals for our school kids. Our service area is actually in 7 counties. One of the unique things about the area that we serve is we share a space with the food bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina. And I often get the question that says, what's the difference between you two? How do you know you're not duplicating services? And that's because our mission and focus are a little bit different. The food bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina, they do a lot of distributions and a lot of food distributions. At Inter-faith, our work is more causes of hunger, nutrition, education opportunities, whether they do agricultural gardens and community gardens opportunities. But we do our work more through education. And there's food that goes with that as a part of that body of work. So counties here to include while our service area are in the rural communities. And managing the diverse programs we offer. That's a great question. We have so many programs and they're expanding now. And I'm getting to the point to where I don't want to call them individual programs. So either we have child programs, and so we are tailoring our distributions to meet specific community needs. So when you're addressing the inequities in food justice, there was a method in the past where everyone get the same box of food, and we're going out, we're going to feed 500 people, and all 500 people get the same box of food. Food justice, there are some individuals that just don't eat green beans, that they're allergic. so we have to tailor our meals. And so on smaller distributions that are more community-based. And so if we go into a community and there are 40 families in that community, if it's a Hispanic community, we go with Hispanic foods, fruits and vegetables that we know that they're going to consume. If it's an African-American community, we go into that community with low sodium foods, with fresh produce and things that we know that this community could benefit from, that also address those root causes. And so we've kind of tailored our program in that fashion. And so it's we have a strong internship program. So if you're looking for a place to intern, look us up and get some experience and some case management, casework, and talking to clients and learning these communities to help us ensure that we're providing what they need. So we got a wonderful team at Interfaith and very passionate people. You know, I call my role more passion management than anything else, you know, is because individuals are so passionate with our volunteers as well. You know, they want to save the world when they come in. And sometimes we have to be strategic in our work and focus on our work and intentional as well, because we want to ensure that we're able to sustain whatever operation that we are introducing and putting out. Our greatest need right now, volunteer support. We are beginning to open back up now a little bit more. We've been fortunate to have the assistance of the National Guard that were helping us to pack bags, that were helping us with deliveries. We were able to bring in some temp workers, and it was because our volunteer base drastically reduced. And so now we're trying to build that volunteer program back as things begin to open up, as protocols that we've learned and put in place to ensure that when volunteers do come in, we're able to keep them safe. And so volunteers is always an opportunity to serve and to support the work that we're doing. And I'll tell you, another important thing you can do is one of the hardest parts of my job that you can help me with. So the hardest thing I have to do every day is convince people that hunger is a real issue. That's the toughest part of my job, is convincing people that hunger is real. There are still some folks that believe that, oh, well, there's food stamps out there, you know, and there's help if they can get it. Well, I've met so many seniors that are getting $16, $17 a month in food stamps. I've met even more that leave those benefits on the table because they realize it's not worth it to go through all the hassle because they're not going to get anything. And so we lose millions of dollars in this state every year because those benefits go unused. And so there's a huge education component and an advocacy component that you can help us do. And that's just educating our friends, educating our neighbors on not only the challenges of, but the solutions to domestic hunger. Do I think that with vaccinations, the volunteer base will increase again? Absolutely. I do think that the more people are comfortable, you know, many of our volunteers, you know, they were on fire. You know, they were like, look, I have on 2 masks. I can come and I can still help do something. They were really wanting to get in there. But we wanted to ensure that we were able to provide a safe space for them. And so it took us some time to learn what was going on and how to respond to it and how to create that safe environment. And that's through frequent sanitation, that's with constant wearing of masks, gloves, and processes where we are consistently sanitizing and wiping down public areas and public spaces, with our staff having the responsibility of sanitizing their own offices after every meeting, and our volunteer spaces as well. Even at the farm, putting in new processes where the tools that volunteers are using, even shovels and rakes and whatever the case is, going through a cleansing process after that to ensure that the next person that's coming and using that equipment would be safe. And so we do expect our volunteers base to pick back up and more people to kind of dive in and start helping. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, and we're moving. Slow is fast, slow is smooth, and smooth is fast, as possible to get these individuals back engaged. Great question. Who are some of the partners that we partner with here, and how has gentrification affected the work in our communities? And like the one pictured in my background, this is our Camden Street garden here in our background. We have several community partners that we partner with. Southeast Raleigh Promise. We partner with organizations that are not even in the food industry. We partner with organizations that have resources that our clients need. There's an organization similar to a Salvation Army that we partner with, because we found that at our distribution, there were families that wouldn't take fresh produce. They wouldn't take refrigerated. They didn't have refrigeration. And so we found an organization that assisted families with refrigeration. And so that was Dress for Success, looking to get skills so that they can get back in the workforce. We partner with many local churches, Mount Sinai Baptist and Market Street Baptist Church, where we host mobile sites, mobile distributions. We partner with local retailers, Food Lions, and in the area, Harris Teeter's in the area, where we're picking up food off of their shelves daily, and we're rescuing that food. 28% of all the food produced in this country end up in the landfill. And so we're trying to rescue as much as we can of that product and get that in on the plates and tables of many families that can use it, because the product is actually still very, very good. We partner with several local farmers. We have a lot of friends at the farmers market, and partnering with those farmers so that when they have excess product that is still great, that they can't use, we're able to take that product and ensure that we get that out to families that could use that product. And then when we have an opportunity to purchase, we invest in our local farmers and purchase here locally as well. So our partnership runs varied. We partner with over 40 schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, where we have backpack programs, where we have school pantry programs. And so once a child leaves elementary school and they're receiving the backpack, they go to middle school, there's a pantry there that their family can have access to. And then when they go to high school, that they have a pantry there that their families can have access to. And once again, when you're looking long down the road, we ask ourselves, are we contributing to the improvements in the graduation rate? Because food was never a barrier at any stage in that child's development. So the dropout rate is decreasing because food was not a barrier. So our partnerships varies across all spectrums. Yes. Oh, that wasn't the question. Volunteering, yes, absolutely. Please visit us at Food Shuttle and see all the great stuff that we're doing. You see a post that you like and something gets you excited, share it with your friends. There are opportunities there to get engaged when we have matching campaigns is another one. We have an organization that says, hey, we'll give you $50,000, but it's a match. You have to raise $50,000 in order for us to give you $50,000. And so that's a match campaign. And so we'll often share that on our social media platforms to get people to give, because once again, we don't want to leave any resources out there on the table when we know that we can invest that right here in our own neighborhood.
I'm curious about some of Interfaith Food Shuttle's programs that are aimed at teaching people about nutrition and cooking.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have great programs there. The first is our senior nutrition programs, and that is actually working with seniors over a 12-month period, where we are tailoring foods to meet their dietary needs. We're providing them the nutrition education on how to prepare this food. We're giving them opportunities either through a gift card for go out and practice and shop for healthy items or the supplemental items so that they can prepare the recipes that are being given to them. And we follow their progress over the course of that time. And we see if they are noticing any health improvements. Is this working? And it's working, so we are able to expand it and include and involve more seniors. And that's how we're able to scale things up that way. Another opportunity that we have is called Cooking Matters. This program is offered both in English, where we are teaching individuals how to cook. So they actually sign up for a 6-week program where they are cutting, slicing, and dicing, learning these new recipes, learning how to eat what they like, healthier, and also teaching them the shopping habits. So we're able to go on grocery store tours with them, once again, giving gift cards and allowing them to shop and see there's some benefits there. Typically, healthy living and healthy eating is not as expensive as people think, so you can make simple, small life choices here that help you with that. The other side of it is what you see behind me, the gardens. Yesterday, I went to the farmer's market since we had our Easter snap, that cold snap out of the way, and I've gotten my herbs. I had like 15 plants of oregano and sage, basil, parsley, mint, all this kind of good stuff, because it's time to get my fresh herbs in the garden now. And so we teach people that because that saves dollars. So not only can you use those herbs and vegetables fresh, but let's show you how to dry them so you can put them in your own and use them over a period of time and adapt it to fit their lives, where they can save themselves dollars, where they can eat healthier, because they know, we don't know what we don't know. And so whenever we have an opportunity to learn, as G.I. Joe say, how do we measure progress of participants in the diet? Great question. One of the things that we focus on is not outputs. So one of the things you won't hear me talk about is, oh, well, we distributed this many pounds of food. Great. It's nice. The outcomes are what we. So I would rather tell you 96% of the seniors that we've seen a improvement in their healthcare. 86% of them have reduced their dosage of their medication because of eating healthier. In the school system, 98% of the teachers reported that they're seeing improvements in the child's behavior, improvements in their grades and attendance, because that barrier was removed. And so we measure those type of outcomes to measure our success, not necessarily output. I would love to do more children in our backpack program. And while we're planning to do that, there's a cost associated. We have to be strategic as we grow and develop. So it's not about the number of kids that we are doing. It is the improvements in the children that we are serving in their lives. And so that's how we measure our success and whether our programs are working or not. Because of HIPAA, we try to make sure that when we're talking about healthcare with our participants, that we don't violate any laws there. And, our clients share with us what they, are comfortable with and where they've seen the improvements themselves. So rather, it's just their general health and having more energy. They're able to take longer walks now. There's supplements, of vitamins now that they're getting them through fresh produce. They're seeing the benefits over a period of time, and so that's so important. And what makes one of our programs so important is that we walk through the process with you. It's not just, here's the food, we hope it helps. It's, here's the food. Did it help? How is it helping? Are you still using it? Hey, did you stick with your diet this week? What did you do different this week? Parents who are in the backpack program. So we not only survey the kids, we survey the counselors at the school, and we also survey the parents. And so it's a great outcome to see when parents say, I'm making different food choices now when I go to the grocery store. I'm not buying the bag of chips that I had to buy before. I'm buying fruit cups now. My kid's going to the store and he's asking me for fruit cups. That's an improvement. And so that's how we measure our success and our outcomes. Great questions. What actions, practices do you take to build trust in communities? Where are you? Yeah, that is an extraordinary question, because that is a barrier that we had to overcome. It takes time to build trust within a community. You'll see this often during a natural disaster, a hurricane or a tornado or something. You get thousands of people that come into your area from all over the country. They want to help. They bring boats in. They come up and set up distributions. They come up and they set up giving out cooking meals, and then they go home. After a few weeks, things seem to be better, and it's like, okay, I'm headed off to the next disaster, or I'm going back home. The food shuttle is going to be here. We were here before the disaster. We were here during the disaster. We're going to be here after the disaster. And being a part of the community, you have to build that trust with those that you're serving in order for them to take advantage of what you have, in order for them to believe in what you're offering. You have to build that trust, and that does not happen overnight. So it takes several conversations. It takes finding the right person in the community to talk to, who can help introduce you to other members of that community. And it may take time. So we've had situations where when we go into a community, before we start distributions, it may take us 2 months, just talking to that community and finding out what the need is. I am a director that is not afraid, and my board kind of sit back in their chairs when I said this, but I am not afraid to tell a donor, no, thank you. I've turned down money before. And so as a nonprofit leader, it's probably not a good practice. However, I find it best to be honest and educate our donors on what the real needs are. I want to be responsible with the resources that you're giving me. And yes, I know you want to do a feel-good moment. I know you want to host a distribution so your team can come out and volunteer and give food out. That's great. That area that you want it in front of in your parking lot, that's not where the food is needed. So if you want to help us give out food, here's where we can go. Here's where I need it the most. out in the country, in this rural community. There's barely Wi-Fi service. The news media is probably not going to come out that far, but that's where I need the food. And I found that I'm having more support from donors who know that we're going to do the right thing with their funds, and we're going to put it where it's most needed. And if that is sometimes not in purchasing the food, but having the right person on staff that can build that trust with that community and opening up that bridge, then that's where we need the resources. So relationship building is the way that we do that.
Well, it's 11 o'clock now, so we'll wrap up this session, but thank you so much. It's great to listen to your words of wisdom and hear about all the tireless work you've put into this. So I thank you for your service as a veteran and for standing in the space of hunger. So everyone, I hope you have a great week. Check out our website for more events that you may be interested in, and definitely volunteer for Interfaith. I've had exceptional experiences. Everyone that works there is so passionate and driven. So thank you all.
Thank you all so much for having me. Take care.